When law and power collide, what the Epupa NamPost ruling means for governance in Namibia by Dr. Rona Shapina, DM. The Windhoek High Court dismissal of Epupa investment technology urgent application marks a turning point in Namibia ongoing conversation about procurement law, state reform, and governance integrity. Epupa had sought to interdict the Ministry of Finance from implementing its decision to award the social grants payment contract to Namibia post-NamPost. The court refusal means that NamPost can proceed for now with taking over the nationwide grant distribution process. But beneath this immediate outcome lies a much deeper story about law, power, and accountability. What the case was about Epupa, a long-time paymaster for the government's social grant system, argued that the procurement process was irregular and that the ministry had bypassed the Public Procurement Act by awarding the contract directly to NamPost through a policy directive. The company further claimed that all bidders, including NamPost, were initially declared non-responsive during the last SPBN bidding process. The ministry later invoked Section 34, execution by public entity, to appoint NamPost, despite that section capping the permissible exemption at 120 million, far below the 273 million contract value. It was denied a fair chance to compete and suffered economic harm after investing heavily in workforce and infrastructure for service continuity. The court's decision, the High Court found that Epupa failed to meet the threshold for urgent relief. In urgent applications, courts focus not only on legality but also on timing, urgency, and potential harm. The judge ruled that Epupa could still pursue its claims through normal legal proceedings, but there was no justification to halt the state's current implementation plan interpretation. This does not necessarily mean the ministry's process was flawless, rather, it means the urgency test was not satisfied. The broader questions of legality and governance may still surface in later proceedings or appeals. What this means for procurement and governance, this ruling carries significant implications for Namibia's procurement ecosystem. Policy vs. law debate intensifies the ministry's reliance on a policy directive over a competitive tender. Process remains contentious. The Procurement Act emphasizes competition, transparency, and equal opportunity principles not easily overridden by political or policy considerations. Government's reform drive gains momentum. The state can now proceed with NamPost's takeover, aligning with its broader reform agenda to centralize and streamline social grant disbursement. However, NamPost unresolved accountability issues, including reports of unaccounted funds, may shadow this transition. Legal precedent for urgent applications. The judgment reinforces that courts will not easily halt state functions unless irreparable harm is imminent. Future litigants challenging procurement decisions will need to prove both procedural illegality and immediate prejudice. Human and economic dimensions beyond legal arguments. This case affects real people. Out of Epupa 110 non-management employees, only 40 were absorbed by NamPost. The remaining 70 employees, including experienced managers, have joined the unemployment pool or are still seeking alternative employment. This sharp reduction in workforce continuity raises key governance and leadership questions. Could the transition have been managed with a stronger labor absorption plan? What mechanisms ensure that public reforms do not create private unemployment crises? And who bears responsibility for the socio-economic fallout of state restructuring? The ministry previously argued that the shift to NamPost would save $54 million annually by removing private intermediaries, but cost savings mean little without social cushioning or transparency. Lessons in leadership and governance. This ruling should not be seen as a victory for one party over another, but as a call for stronger systems. For policymakers, policy must serve the law, not replace it. For boards and state entities, public trust is earned through accountability, not appointments. For institutions like CPBN, independence and procedural consistency are critical to maintaining procurement integrity. True leadership requires balancing fiscal prudence with social fairness. Reform without human sensitivity erodes the very public confidence that governance seeks to build. Legal pathway. High Court dismisses urgency. Normal court process may follow. Reform vs risk and 54M annual savings vs job loss and accountability concerns. Conclusion. The Epupa NamPost ruling underscores Namibia's ongoing struggle to balance policy ambition with legal discipline. Reform is necessary, but reform without rule of law and social balance undermines governance itself. As NamPost takes the reins of social grant payments, the spotlight turns to its capacity, internal controls, and moral responsibility not just to deliver efficiency, but to uphold accountability and dignity for every Namibian affected by its operations. Thank you for watching. Please comment, share, like, subscribe and visit our bookstore at warsestore.com.